Thanks, Natalie, for setting that off. So thanks everyone today for joining us on this joint webinar with BeyondHR and Willo. My name is Euan, and today we're going to discuss how the job interview has changed forever. A little bit of housekeeping just before we get started. Any questions that you have at any point during this half an hour, 45-minute session, please just ask them using the Q&A function at the bottom of Zoom. We'll answer those questions at the end of the call. And also it's worth mentioning, as you just heard there, that this entire webinar is recorded and you'll receive a copy at the end of the call. So anyone that wants to share this or recap any of those points, you'll have a recording. So let's just get started. As you'll agree, so much has changed for businesses over the past 18 months. And we hear a lot in the media about things like working from home versus the office, the talent shortage, and the revolution of remote work. But one specific area that doesn't receive much attention in the media at the moment is the rapidly changing job interview and the general hiring process and how that's changing. When we think of hiring, the traditional hiring process, it's really conjured up of a vacancy on a website, a mountain of CVs on someone's desk, and a group of candidates sitting in reception waiting to be interviewed. But that's obviously not the case anymore. And over the past 18 months, those days have completely changed, and no one's going anywhere near your reception anymore. And many of the leading academics are actually speaking about a digital revolution in hiring. So today I'm joined by Natalie, Managing Consultant at BeyondHR, and Woody, CCO and co-founder at Willo. And over the next 30 minutes, the three of us are going to discuss the changes that we've seen over the past 18 months in hiring, the legal implications and the HR implications of new hiring processes and new interviewing techniques. And then finally, how you can ensure that your business is able to attract and hire the best talent with the help of HR tech. So hopefully that all makes sense. And Natalie, we're going to kick off with you. Obviously, Natalie, you work with hundreds of businesses and growing businesses, particularly across the UK and Ireland. How has the hiring process changed over the past 18 months for your clients? And what does it look like today for the majority of businesses that you guys work with?
Thanks, Euan. Thanks for the introduction as well. As you said, I'm Natalie, a managing consultant from BeyondHR, and we assist clients in Scotland, England, and Northern Ireland. And we help with all things HR, and as part of HR, recruitment. Obviously, COVID has been our main bag over the last 15 months with everybody and navigating through that. But a big part of what we've been able to do over recent months as well has been recruitment. And your question, Euan, what has changed? What hasn't changed? It's been, wow, the last 15 months in terms of recruitment has been a real eye-opener. And maybe business owners had kind of dipped their toes into some of these things or was thinking about doing it. But one of the good things, and we obviously must celebrate some of the good things for COVID because there's just so negative items out there, is the advancement in technology and how that has really helped businesses that had maybe never been on Zoom or on Teams before and are riding with it. They may never have enjoyed it or even tried it, but certainly from the recruitment point of view, it's been an absolute lifesaver. There's been no option at times during these lockdowns for face-to-face contact. There's not been any option to be able to interview candidates on their premises. So we've had to adapt. Candidates from their point of view as well, it's been far more flexible rather than trying to get childcare and get time out of a business to go for an interview, especially most people don't ask permission to go and get time off for an interview. They have to try and make it work within their day, but maybe just having an hour that they need to try and get off in the day is far easier than having to travel an hour each way and have that hour for the interview as well and sort childcare. All they now need to do is sort what room they're going to be interviewed in. So from a candidate's point of view, it's been good that there is more flexibility as well. And it's given business owners more time from what we have seen, rather than scheduling out days of interviews. The interview, and I guess you'll touch on this, the interview process can happen in the background, and then in the evening when they feel more relaxed, when they can give it their absolute full attention, they can sit down and review back-to-back interviews online and really save all that time. Clients haven't, and we haven't had to schedule too much time or spend a lot of time scheduling calls and what time can we speak, where a telephone interview as a first stage would have been, or a face-to-face would have been a lot of time trying to figure out with the diaries. But again, it's happened all in the background. So that time during the day means that businesses can do other things. We've only got 30 minutes to speak, so I guess we could speak about this all day, but there's definitely been much more demand from our clients on remote. But before, there was a big emphasis on where the person came from. Now it doesn't really matter. Obviously, that comes with the caveat of getting advice if they're not within the UK, etc. But there's definitely been more demand for remote roles within business as well, moving with the times, things that people wanted to do but just never took the jump and done it. But COVID has meant that they've had no option, or it's gave them the opportunity. Telephone interviews for us, we've not been doing them, they're a thing of the past. So we've really moved on with our clients and embraced and just moved forward.
Yeah, that's quite refreshing as well, because obviously there is a lot of negativity over the past 18 months around obviously the economy and how businesses operate, but it sounds like there's obviously a lot of positive change for businesses too, which is really encouraging to hear. Woody, I'm going to jump to you. So clearly, from what Natalie's saying, a lot has changed, and there's been a lot of positive changes as well that we can walk away from and say, actually, this was a good thing to come out of what's happened. What are some of the biggest challenges that you see at Willo when you're speaking to customers?
Yeah, thanks, Euan. Hi, everyone. What are the biggest challenges? It's really interesting because a lot of the challenges that we talk to our clients about, they are simply amplified versions of the challenges that they faced before. So things like scheduling time in people's diaries when everybody's incredibly busy. It is, seeing beyond a CV and having consistency in your interview process to make sure that actually we're giving everybody the right opportunity to succeed. Actually being able to communicate that across, different departments, across recruiter to hiring manager, and how do you actually translate what you heard on a telephone call into, what does that actually mean? It kind of becomes Chinese whispers at that point, where you try and hand things over and, actually you can't really be on the call at the same time. So that's always been a challenge, right? But it's just been amplified. And what I think COVID did was, back in March, April last year, everybody sort of hit the pause button and took stock of where they're at. And now actually they're going, okay, well, these are the inefficiencies within the UK recruitment market, which is a £39 billion marketplace. Scary statistic for you. There's one recruitment company to every 62 organizations in the UK. So it's a really competitive recruitment market. So everything from attraction, scheduling, communication, consistency, it's always been a challenge, but now people are starting to take their kind of, from our perspective, HR technology much more seriously, whereas before I think it kind of just sat on a dusty shelf to manage payroll and holidays. Now people are going, okay, well, how do we get the best talent? What's our applicant tracking system? How are we interviewing people? All of that stuff has now become more and more important as individuals have got less time than ever, because actually they're working from home, they're being interrupted every 10 minutes. They've got Zoom fatigue, it's more difficult to actually display your culture to a business. So all of those things are kind of molded into one big challenge now. The technology plus process is starting to alleviate, I guess.
Yeah, and obviously, kind of going back to what Natalie said earlier, are the businesses that you're speaking to seeing this as a positive change? Like, obviously it's a challenge, but are they looking for positive changes to come out of this?
Yeah, I think there's two groups of people when it comes to recruiters: those that like to stay in their comfort zone, and those that are disrupting and embracing the kind of technology market. Obviously, the ones that have come to us, 9 times out of 10, they're embracing this and seeing it as a real positive opportunity to change the way that they're speaking to candidates. And I think what you'll find over time is when those efficiencies and the talent that gets hired by those kind of companies starts to get noticed, you know, the results that people are actually having, then that will start to seep out across the industry. We're moving out of, I mean, video interviewing, you'll know this, you and Natalie, you'll know it as well. Video interviewing isn't that new, to be totally honest. It just wasn't that embraced before because people were a little bit afraid of it. You know, oh, I don't want to send out a link to somebody and they have to record themselves. That seems a little bit strange. But actually, the benefits of flexibility, of low anxiety, not having to, you know, drive to a new place, new office, you know, meet new people, everything that you don't generally do in a job, you can do in a much more flexible basis. So people are starting to see that, and obviously we've seen the kind of benefit of that. Yeah,
okay. And Natalie, I want to ask you something then. So obviously top of mind of a lot of people is that are watching this webinar is probably what are the HR considerations and challenges that the businesses need to think about. So obviously we're in a changing world. There's a lot of changes to the way that we're hiring. Our processes are changing. But what are some of the challenges that we should be mindful of?
And here's one I prepared earlier. Absolutely. So there are many things to consider. And as we said, today is just a taster session in terms of some of the considerations, because these could all be quite in-depth and many more things to consider. But for us really at BeyondHR, the culture is hard. Like if you're going into a normal interview, you're walking through the building, you're simple funny things like you're smelling the coffee, you're smelling the scent of the building, you're seeing what people are like. So over video, how do we replicate that? But I've seen some really good examples and it shouldn't be a barrier. There are ways that it can be done, but it just might be that it's a bit harder to be able to show your culture. So it's something just to consider in terms of the full process from start to finish of speaking to that employee, to offering them a job. How do you get across that culture if everything is done online via video? Accommodating individuals and any other additional needs as well. Not everybody likes video, despite all of the benefits. Even today, is this my most comfortable setting? No. Would sometimes I rather be face-to-face? Yes, but what we need to remember is it's effective, and hopefully we get to see people's personalities still even over video. But there are for some people there'll be hesitancy. There might be a potential disability that puts them at a disadvantage from coming onto video. So all of these things we do need to be aware of and have that question, have that chat. And if there's anybody that is just not happy doing it, then find out the reasons why, because we might be able to get around it. And actually, it may not be as daunting. And I know from Willo, obviously, you can, and you'll probably touch on this, there are ways and means. It's not a one fire, that's you, your video's done, it's gone. Hopefully, there are ways and means that put people definitely at ease. The unexpected visitor to an interview, a laugh and a chuckle at this one. I think when we look back, we all remember that example of the BBC presenter sitting on the news and the nanny comes in with the baby that was wheeled in and she's like pulling him back, and that was mortifying for that gentleman, absolutely mortifying. But if we think in today's world, that probably happens all of the time now. And we're not, I wouldn't say, Euan, that we're really faced by that anymore. So we do need to appreciate that people are in their own private homes, things happen, life still happens in the background while someone is maybe having that interview. So not to let it put you off. If you're in a room, obviously it's you and that other person or people and there's no other distractions. But I think that's something, but I think we've all got used to it very, very well. Cue anybody that walks in past you guys. But I think we've got to embrace that. Recording the interview as well, another consideration. How do we do it? Do we need to ask permission? Of course we have to ask for permission to be recording people like we did today. We made sure that you're aware as the audience that the meeting is being recorded. So that is another consideration, but also that could be a good thing for recording the interview as well. Certainly being able to, you can go back and recap on your notes, but if you're seeing a lot of candidates, sometimes your memory fades and you forget, and you don't remember what the person looks like and remember how they came across. But if the recording's there, you can jump back in at any time and review it and refresh your memory. Focusing on the candidate rather than the quality of the video, I would say for businesses, this is still a big one that we need to try and get round. So if there is an interruption or a video that's poor, or just reading some stats, like everybody's probably sat and analysed both Euan and Andrew's background. What's there? Is there a bookcase? Oh, what books are on a shelf? So not getting distracted by all of that and just focusing on that particular client, a particular candidate, that you're looking at. It's obviously harder to assess body language as well over video, and it's a consideration, but sometimes it might not even be a bother. But I could be toe tapping right now, but actually that could be a distraction in an interview. If you're sitting with me right now and you only see here, you might not see that I'm twiddling my thumbs or toe tapping underneath. And as long as you're able to see in the main, then hopefully body language should not be an issue. And our final GDPR data protection, save the best till last as usual. You're going to have to get some advice on this. So do you need to update your privacy policy? What are you doing with the data? How are you storing it correctly? Do you talk about video and interviewing in your policies and all your documentation? All of these items that you do have to make sure that you keep yourself right in terms of a GDPR perspective, who'll be watching the videos, etc. The list goes on for data protection. So definitely say for that point that you do need to get some proper advice. That's all for the moment. Plenty of others to talk about, but it's a starter.
That's an amazing.
I think, yeah. Sorry, Euan, I was just going to say, I think Anto had a question about assessing body language and how important it is. And I think the reality is, when it comes to body language, that actually, yeah, we'd love to meet everybody face to face all the time, but it can be really inefficient. So what we talk about from a Willo perspective is that we're a supplement, not a substitute. So we're actually trying to add to the kind of laborious telephone interview stage, that kind of stuff. If you switch that for a video interview that's flexible, somebody can do any time, and you get to see that body language and communication style with an individual, you get that. And then if you invite them to a face-to-face interview as well, even better. So you have a much more fully formed picture of the individual before making a decision. So hopefully that answers your question, Anto.
I think that the point that really stood out to me there, Natalie, was basically focusing on the candidate and not what's going on in the background. I think that's a really important one, because it's a massive change, isn't it? Like you've got obviously the books here, you've got what's going on out in the street behind me. That shouldn't impact what you think of me as a candidate. But obviously these elements are going on in the background, and it's actually there's a bit of training and a bit of work there to be done from an organizational perspective to actually remove that bias, which I think is definitely an important one, and we can speak more about that in another episode, hopefully. Woody, we're just going to jump on to, I guess, some of the solutions to what Natalie was just pointing out there. So obviously there's lots of considerations and concerns to be aware of around using video and using virtual interviews rather than face-to-face interviews. But how can some of our HR tech solutions actually help businesses to make the best use of this change in the way that we actually hire people? And I guess building a better team of people around us.
Yeah, good question. Feels like a segue into Willo, really, which it is. So to kind of, I guess, give a broader view than just Willo, there's two sort of considerations you need to think about when it comes to, let's talk about a virtual interview process. And that is firstly sourcing. So how do we attract and source candidates? And then secondly, how do we assess them? So to Natalie's point, one of the most difficult things is actually, what is our company culture, values, and ethos? And I don't know if people on this call know, maybe they do, but candidates now, they look for 7 to 12 reference points for your business before they actually apply to your role, which is quite scary, really, because I can't think of 7 touch points that maybe an interviewee would be interested in. So you've got to think about things like Glassdoor. You've got to think about, the job posting that you've got, your personal LinkedIn brand. What does your website values actually say about you? So actually, digital technology, let's not just think about the assessment. Think about, okay, what's our kind of shop window, if you like, when it comes to us as an organization. And you could actually, again, you could do a full episode purely on the attraction side of things. When it comes to assessment, and obviously just talking about what we know more about, is being able to drive flexibility and consistency through utilizing a video platform. So what Willo, being really specific, allows you to do is ultimately send out a link to anybody anywhere on the planet, and they can click on that link at any time that they like in the comfort of their own home and record their answers. So it allows them to feel relaxed, and having worked as a recruiter for 11 years, one of the main things that you want to do with a candidate is make them help them bring out the best in a candidate. Our job is not to put them under loads of pressure. Personally, I don't think that put them under loads of pressure so they crack. The idea is, what if you put them in a great environment, a good working environment, what are they going to achieve for your business? So in an interview, it should be exactly the same. We shouldn't be putting them under high stress. We should be, yes, testing them, but bringing out their best. And what Willo allows somebody to do is do that flexibly and comfortably. From an employer perspective, there's a lot of benefits to using something like video interviewing instead of potentially telephone interviews, for example. So I'll tell you a story. We worked with the NHS, and we did a big project with them, and basically they saw their shortlist to hire ratio go from 5 to 1. So that's 4 wasted interviews to 2 to 1. So you saw a huge increase in the quality of candidates, and then a huge decrease because it went from like a 6-month project to a 2-month project. You saw a decrease in the amount of time spent actually going through the process. And then another big thing that people talk about when it comes to video and the use of digital technology is bias, right? And everybody's incredibly concerned with bias, and I am too. The reality is, however, that technology can't get rid of bias within your organization. It can't, because if you put in a great technology that sources amazing candidates, completely removes bias, when they turn up to work, and if you haven't solved the issues inside your organization, they're going to be passed up for promotions because of unconscious bias. They're going to be treated differently by the manager because of unconscious bias. So what video interviewing allows you to actually do is, it doesn't remove bias, but it allows you to hold people accountable and actually train them on their decisions. So you can look backwards to the candidates, see the diversity and inclusion spread of those candidates and why people actually made the decisions that they made. So there's lots of different benefits. And again, in that project that I talked about, 1/3 of the people that got the job would have actually been rejected purely based on their paper application. So not only are you allowing flexibility, you're also giving the opportunity for somebody that maybe doesn't have an amazing CV but has coachability, potential, the ability to work on their own great communication skills, etc. So there's lots of different things that can fit into that frame. So Euan, do you want me to just do a quick example of what an interview could look like?
Amazing. Yeah, that sounds good. Please go ahead.
Just based on time, I think we'll just go a little bit through it. And what I'll try and do is give some sort of hints and tips, I guess, around, what does good look like. So just make sure that I'm sharing the right screen here.
Yeah,
perfect. So rather than show you the kind of user side, how you set up and everything like that, I'm just going to give you a quick demo of what the candidate journey looks like and what's important within it. The reality is that actually we are back to already a talent deficit. So the people that we need for the jobs that we have are in short supply. So that means we have to work incredibly quickly, and we have to get people buying into our business, our vision, etc. So one thing that's really important, whatever solution you're using and whether it's video, whether it's psychometrics or whatever, just make it really simple to use. Because if you don't, people will disconnect from your process very, very quickly, especially if they are sort of millennial down. Their patience is minimal. So, for example, with Willo, you don't have to download anything. It works on any device whatsoever. It's completely frictionless. And yeah, it's just a great candidate experience. 80% of candidates that go through Willo haven't done a video interview before, which is quite interesting. But they rate us 8.6 out of 10 for user experience. Things that you really need to be conscious of, first and foremost, is reciprocity. So if you're going to ask somebody to do a one-way video, you should absolutely be willing to do a one-way video yourself. It speaks volumes to a candidate if you've got a landing page like this and you're going, we're going to ask you 3 video-based questions, and at no point have you put yourself out there either. So if you find it uncomfortable, that's totally fine. And if you're an engineer, that's totally fine. They're engineers too. They're going to find it uncomfortable. If you're a salesperson and you love it, salespeople are going to love it. And that's the difference between the kind of 2 camps. Is people always say, oh, is it right for every role? And well, the reality is it's the people assessing that make the difference, not the people that have been recorded, if that makes sense. In here, just make sure that you keep it short and sweet. You want a video introduction, as I talk about your vision, what you're looking for, etc. And then again, things to look out for is just GDPR compliance. So for example, Willo, we're hosted in London on AWS servers. Everything has to be deleted after 6 months for GDPR. So really dig into that. There's a lot of organizations that don't hold their data in the right place or have the right mechanisms in place. Again, being a candidate first business, you want to make sure they've got some hints and tips. 80% of people haven't done it before, so it's really important to make them feel comfortable. Should have some sort of practice area, and then, as you can see, no logins or anything like that, and they just jump straight into the interview. So other things to just bear in mind are, A, don't ask too many questions. So think about where this is in your process and don't ask too many questions. B, keep the questions relative to, so if you're devising questions, you should ramp them up over time. So the first question is usually something like, tell me about yourself. Second question is then a situational question, maybe about something that's happened to somebody in the same role that you're recruiting for recently, and talking about how they would solve that problem. So really great situational questions that show coachability, that show communication and problem solving and the ability to work on your own. I'm just going to answer this question, Euan, and then I'll hand back rather than go all the way through. But there are some other things within Willo that you can do as well. Cool things like you can have file uploads rather than video interview, because it's not always a video that you need. It might be a document, it might be a presentation. You might want to supplement a video with a presentation. And as you can see, it's just really, really simple. You can review back your video once it's uploaded. And another really important point, you can change the number of re-records. You can give somebody no re-records. The number one bit of feedback that we get from candidates is, thank you so much for giving me unlimited re-records. I feel so much more comfortable. And that's going to, again, speak to your company culture and therefore, speak to the candidate experience and end up with, and basically who you're going to end up with in the team. So really important stuff to kind of take into consideration. That's probably it, Euan, from a candidate perspective.
Thanks, Andrew. So obviously that's the candidate side of things, and the candidate, I guess the overall message here is try and make it as easy and most comfortable as possible for the candidate, because this is a new experience for them, right? I guess on the flip side, we haven't really spoken too much about the benefits that technology like Willo can bring to the businesses using it. And obviously, Natalie at BeyondHR, you and the team are successfully using Willo. How are you finding that? You got any insights?
Yeah, absolutely. We've had many clients with very positive experiences, which is great in terms of the recruitment that we are able to offer, because it's something else that we are able to show that we are also forward thinking and trying to help business owners and businesses with some solutions to make their life easier, make them sleep at night, give them more time throughout the day to do other things as well, while the recruitment process can happen in the background. We had a particular client that unfortunately had a bereavement right in the middle of the recruitment process. Now, had that been face-to-face, then the whole process would have had to have stopped. But what that did mean is that the process continued. The client flew to America and the process happened in the background. So he landed in America, the candidates were still able to flexibly go and do their videos. He could land in a different time zone, different everything. He was able to log on to view the candidates, to proper assess them when he felt a bit more chilled out, when the time was right for him, and then call us to let us know who that he would like to select for the next stage. Had that not been in place, then it would have resulted in a delay of another couple of weeks due to COVID restrictions, etc. It was quite difficult for the person to come back. So it just made the process far easier for him and gave him a solution. In the meantime, life goes on. He can continue going about his stuff while the process is happening in the background, and he could just sit, view the candidates back to back, and we gave the client a great experience.
Amazing.
And we've all been in that situation, haven't we, Natalie? Where you know, you need to fill a role, and somebody's putting you under loads of pressure, but they're also saying at the same time, I don't really have the time to commit to interviewing candidates, or get through these CVs or whatever it may be, and the beauty of technology is it can just remove those time barriers. That means that business continues. And actually, I think the average time to fill a role is something like 23 days in the UK. And so for example, with one of our clients, they went from a 4-week hiring process to a 1-week hiring process. And that's just purely because they could manage it flexibly. And, it's an MD owner of a company. Very little time, but also in charge of recruitment. And if you can just do that at any time, that you like, whilst you're making a cup of tea or watching England win the World Cup, getting ahead of myself, then it fits around you and your business, and therefore everything keeps moving.
I feel like the overall theme here then is really around flexibility for the candidates, flexibility for the businesses, and flexibility for your clients, Natalie. It's really interesting, and that's where we've actually come. We've ended up, I suppose. This is the next final part of this conversation is really the questions. So anybody, obviously, feel free to use the question panel on Zoom here. We've got a couple of questions already. I'm just going to go into the first one here. Over to you and Natalie to answer this one. Can you reject someone on the basis that they don't want to come to a face-to-face interview?
Really good question there. Thanks for whoever posed the question. So rejection based on not being able to come to a face-to-face interview. Yeah, I think we need to COVID has been a great example of that. There are certain reasons as to why people would not have felt comfortable being able, or maybe they're extremely clinical vulnerable, etc. So actually, by not allowing them and not having another solution in place may pose some risk to your business. It may be because of that condition that they have, that they are unable or they feel unsafe to go on public transport, for example, to get to an interview. They maybe have to get the bus to get there, etc. So I think from a business point of view, they need to understand the reason, first of all, just by asking the question, are you not comfortable to come in? Is there anything else that we can do in place? Video solution may be why right off the candidate, because they're unable to come in. Video solution might have to be the route that they have to go down.
Yeah, okay. And I've got another one here, which is along the same lines. Don't you feel that employers would be influenced by unconscious bias more with video?
Andrew, do you want to look at that one, or will we double handle this one?
Well, I think maybe we'll both give an opinion, but I guess it speaks back to the point I made earlier around the fact that bias is a human condition, not a technological one. So you can put in some technologies that claim to remove bias, but on the first day of employment, you know, if you've got a room of people and I'm a hiring manager and I've not had training on how to, you know, call out my own unconscious bias, then I'm going to immediately gravitate to the people that, you know, look, speak, act like me, and therefore they're probably going to get more training, more opportunities, and do better in the workplace. So, you know, from a video perspective, I actually think there's a great opportunity to hold people accountable. Whereas on a CV, so again, another stat, you might have guessed I like stats. The average time that somebody spends reviewing a CV is very scarily 7 seconds. So if you're looking at a CV for 7 seconds, you look at the name, the school, the location, and their education, and that's it. You don't really look at any of the writing in detail. So you're making a very, very quick judgment on that person and whether you like their name or not, and whether you like where they grew up. Whereas with video, it's very difficult to not watch the first 20 seconds at least. So you're already assessing somebody more. Plus, you have to very consciously be biased if somebody's got great communication skills, if they, you know, give a really great answer to a problem, etc., etc. So obviously I'm biased because we run a video business, so I have to be honest about that. But I really don't think that it's the problem. The problem lies in people not being aware of unconscious bias.
And even to go into that as well, Andrew, even if they are aware of it and they feel that it's creeping in and they can see that it's creeping in, then I guess with the point of being in the room, sometimes it's difficult to get another manager to come in to the meeting, etc. But you can hang over the video to ask someone second opinion on what their thoughts are, and they could also help assess and even get a second opinion. The interview happens, and then you need to invite them back in if the person's not available, etc. So it's much easier to maybe get that second opinion if someone naturally feels that some kind of bias is creeping in as well.
Yeah, it's a really good point, and actually we have a number of government agencies in the US that use Willo, and the reason they use it is they get all of the videos and then they have to have a panel judgment of each candidate. So every candidate has 4 people benchmarking them. They've all been through extensive training, and then they have to keep all of that data for 3 years afterwards, so that, you know, if there were any legal ramifications, they could go, yeah, but this is the process that we went through, and you can hold me accountable to the decision that I made. And doing that with a telephone interview, nigh on impossible, really. So yeah, very interesting.
Excellent. Okay, well, final question, and we'll wrap this up. One here from Steve. Where would you recommend starting with your HR tech stack, and how can I get set up with something similar?
Cool. I mean, HR tech stack is a huge beast these days. So first thing you need to look at really is an ATS or something that can act like an ATS for you. So an applicant tracking system. I would strongly endorse looking at free systems or something with a really long extended free trial, because it enables you to test it out with your audience. You know, video interviewing works across all different roles, but maybe it doesn't work for your business. So it's really important actually that you trial it out, you find where it fits in the company, et cetera, et cetera. So for example, with Willo, we have a free forever platform, which allows you to have one role and 20 applicants every single month. So if you're an SME business and you only recruit for one person a month and you don't get more than 20 applications, you could basically use Willo as your ATS and your video system. If you're a larger organization, you absolutely need to have a sort of mid-market enterprise level ATS that you then get all of these other tools integrated into. And that integration piece is pretty important. So obviously something I'm pretty passionate about. So if anybody does have any more detailed questions, then let me know. If you want to sign up to Willo, I'm pretty sure we're going to put the link up at the end. But any other questions about ATSs or psychometric profiling, you should look at a company called Arctic Shores. They're absolutely brilliant psychometric testing platform. There's lots of others, so it's become quite a convoluted market. So try stuff for free and figure out what fits would be my advice.
Okay, and that's us. So thank you for joining us today. please visit WeGoBeyondHR.com to get in touch with Natalie and the team with any questions about tech or the way that hiring and interviewing is going, and in particular around the legal aspects of that, which is obviously quite a minefield, as we've discovered. And check out willo.video to create a free account and try video interviewing for yourself today, absolutely free. And obviously any questions that you guys have, feel free to email us on the contact details on the screen. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.